Salutations, lads and lasses. I want to sort of preface this video with a little bit of a disclaimer and explanation. This video is by no means a news video or a breakdown of the information that has been released since the showcase like 4 days ago or something like that. But rather, this is my thoughts and opinions on what I saw and how those thoughts and opinions changed as more information was dropped and I sort of digested that new information. After the showcase ended, I found myself pretty conflicted about what I saw. Don't get me wrong, my thoughts were like overall positive, but I was still conflicted and I had a hard time getting my thoughts and opinions straight and in a way that was satisfactory to me and in a way where I could explain it to you all without it being this jumbled mess of nonsense. So I decided to hold off on making a video for a day or so I could get my thoughts together. Well, one day turned into 2, which turned into 3, and here we are. The multiple day extension was due to, family being in town because of the hurricane that just landed this weekend or last week or whenever it made landfall. I think that holding off on making a video actually ended up paying off in the long run, as a lot of the new information that has come out since the showcase has changed my opinions about what I saw and only helped to make me more excited than I already was, more hyped. So with that little explanation out of the way, I think it is time to talk about what you and I saw and how I feel about it and how this new information has only led to the hype growing and my excitement growing. Of course, I have my reservations and I'll explain those as well, but without further ado, let's talk about what we saw. So, I have rewritten this script twice. The first time I was going to make this video, I didn't even script it, I just had bullet points and I was just going to kind of ramble. And I didn't like that at all. None of the takes that I did I really liked. And then I did a script and I read that off, and that video was actually done, completely edited and everything. And I didn't like that one either. I thought it was also kind of incoherent and it didn't really get my point across very well. So, after much revising and editing, this is the final script of my opinions. So, let's start. When the showcase first ended, there was a lot of things that were going through my head. But as I stated before, my opinions were overall positive, and my excitement had not dwindled even in the slightest. Some of the new information that came out after the showcase came in the form of online articles, developer Q&As with some content creators, and a gameplay trailer that dropped right after the showcase ended, just to name a few of the many sources of information since the showcase ended. These sources of new information provided a lot of answers and helped address some of the things that I was skeptical about. So I'm going to explain how I initially felt and then how this new information changed those beliefs and opinions. Of course, we should probably confront or address the elephant in the room first. The graphics we saw during the demo. The game looked plastic. It looked flat, and the textures were overall not that impressive, if I'm being honest. This is not new news though, this was the general sentiment of a lot of people right after the showcase ended. Dare I say most. And I was amongst that group who felt that way about it, I mean, the graphics were such a big deal in the community that it spawned a load of memes, from Craig the Brute to Megablock's Halo comparisons, Minecraft World, you name it. But that was just part of it. People make comparisons between Infinite and older games like Halo 3 and Halo Reach, or games from other platforms or different franchises and everything, just to prove how bad these graphics were really. And I say prove with little air quotations, because it's kind of subjective whether it proves a point or not. I knew that this was not how the game was going to ship, and that's why I say it's subjective, because if you actually think about it, obviously the game's not going to look like that. So you're not really proving that a game that came out 4 years ago looks better than Halo Infinite, because you haven't even seen Halo Infinite yet. Or a game that came out like 13 years ago looks better, because we haven't seen the finished product. I know, and I knew at that point, that more polishing and texture work was going to be done, but I did not know why this build is what it was shown. Since then, information has come out basically confirming that the build shown in the demo was in fact an older build. Some people claiming the build is as old as January. I mean, we're almost in August, so it's a pretty substantial amount of time. But I do not think the exact age of the build has actually been confirmed. That's just an estimate. This was most likely done for optimization reasons. I mean, if a team has to forfeit some graphical fidelity changes from a new build to ensure that it is more optimized and less likely to have technical issues, then they will most likely choose optimization over visuals. Essentially what I'm trying to say is, if your older build doesn't look as good but is more optimized, you're probably going to want to use that when you're showcasing your game to the world, because you don't want to be having technical issues during the showcase, you know what I'm saying? I think the only time that, graphical fidelity isn't, sacrificed for optimization is if there is a ginormous difference in the graphical quality of the two builds in question. Some Halo Infinite detractors they're probably out there like, oh no bro, the difference between the trailer and the demo is ginormous. They shouldn't have sacrificed it. And to that I say, you know what? They did what they did. Who cares? That's not the finished product. There's countless examples of this is how this game looked during its E3 demo. This is how this game looked at launch. I know I've seen Gears 5, Gears 4, you could use Halo 2. Obviously the demo is not indicative of the end product, so it doesn't really matter in the long run. And coming back around to that, I know the demo is not the final product. Everyone should. But having confirmation and transparency from 343 Industries on why this happened, and reaffirming that the game is much farther along, so to speak, than what we saw was nice. Because like I said, they confirmed a lot of the things the community was already thinking through Q&As and interviews and things like that. The first hint that the demo build was older, that the community talked about a lot, was the gameplay trailer that released after the demo. I kinda, used that as a joke earlier, mentioned it. This trailer had textures and lighting that looked way better than what we saw in the demo. And so people deduced that the trailer is made with a newer build, and in a way helped back the optimization theory that I went over. I choose the more optimized build over the visuals for said optimization. Some people are still upset and making a big deal out of the demo's graphics, but myself and many others are past that, and we have put those concerns to rest because they were addressed by the developers. One thing that I loved both right after the showcase and up until now was the sandbox, and how the weapons behave and how the new equipment changes the dynamic of combat, in a good way of course. I feel like a lot of people simply wanted to see Halo 3 2.0, or some sort of hardcore classic Halo game. While I love and prefer classic Halo, I understand that games need to modernize to reach new audiences, while also trying to listen to and please their core or original audience. It is a balance that is hard to reach, especially with how divided and, quote, set in their beliefs some members of the Halo community are, for lack of a better term. I do not mind Sprint, and I like how equipment returned to its Halo 3 style, where you pick it up and it's probably one-time use unless it's something like the grapple hook. but at the same time they're also implementing new and unique, for Halo, items that will change the dynamic of combat. 343 Industries also confirmed that the AI can adapt to new equipment and the newfound freedom the Halo Infinite's more open combat loop will offer. So that will be interesting to see as well, in my opinion. The only thing about the sandbox that I would say I still straight up do not like is the redesign for the shotgun and the pistol. That is, if they are actually redesigns and not different variants of said weapon. I'll get into that a little bit later. I think the new pistol looks kinda generic. I've heard some people compare it to Halo 2's Magnum, or pistol, and I can see that, but Halo 2's pistol still looked Halo. This one looks a lot more generic, you know what I'm saying? You might not agree with me, or you might not really notice it, but that's just something I noticed. I mean, to me, it looks like something I could go pick up at, like, Cabela's. Oh wait, no I can't, because you can't buy guns or 9mm ammo hardly at all. It's all out of stock, all sold out. Oh well, I already stocked up, so we good. It does not really look futuristic or Halo. The new shotgun also looks unique, do not get me wrong about that, but it does not look Halo to me. As a matter of fact, it looks like the Brecci or the Brecci from Black Ops 3. I don't care how you pronounce it, but it looks like that. Now, if these newly designed weapons do not like straight up replace their original counterpart, but coexist with the original weapon, then it will not be an issue at all in my eyes. I just do not want another Halo 5 fiasco where they replaced the rocket launcher, they got a lot of hate, and then they ended up adding the spunker back into the game as a DLC weapon. I don't want to have to go through that and deal with that. If they want new weapons, that's fine, but in my opinion, I still think it would be cool and would probably please the most people if they had both renditions. They should implement their new weapons alongside the originals for maximum like content and positive reactions, because you're pleasing the people who want classic weapons and the people who like the new stuff without really, you know, sacrificing all that much, because since when has people complained about more content in a game? It's never. The semi-open world approach that Halo Infinite is taking is also something that I loved when I saw the showcase. And frankly, I still love it to this very moment. Now you might be saying, why did you say semi-open world? It is open world, you idiot. And you are technically right about both of those things. When I say semi-open world, I mean Halo Infinite is probably going to play more like Far Cry rather than a Fallout game. The narrative and sequences of events is still going to be told as a linear story, but how you approach, complete, and maybe even what order you do the objectives and reach parts of the story is going to be more non-linear and open to the player to proceed however they wish in accomplishing these objectives. Whereas, for example, Fallout, the story is not quite as linear. You were kind of just thrown into the game to do quite literally whatever you want, with the main story being not so much non-essential, but it's not really shoved in your face. You know, you can play along the main story if you really want to, or you can do all these side quests first. It doesn't really matter. Depending on what you do in Fallout, you can even skip parts of the main story, and if you know what quests to do in what order, you can like completely shave down the main story and main quest line to be much shorter or less in depth. You will really only experience the major points of the main quest line. However, with Halo Infinite, you will most likely progress through the narrative how 343 Industries wants you to, and experience the entirety of the story without the ability to bypass small or large portions of it by completing side quests ahead of when you're supposed to, or something like that, something along those lines. Which is much like how Far Cry's story progresses. Again, I'm not claiming this to be fact, but with what 343 Industries has said about the open world aspects and how the narrative is going to flow, this is the style of open world that I am led to believe we will be experiencing in Halo Infinite. If you'll recall, at the beginning of this video, I said this is not a news or breakdown video, but there is one piece of new information I really want to touch on. The piece of information in question is how 343 Industries has stated that they designed Halo Infinite to be a platform in which Halo's story will develop for years to come. From what I gathered from the interviews with 343 Industries and other YouTubers' videos, they intended to add on to Halo Infinite, probably in the form of like campaign DLCs, when they want to tell new stories within the universe, rather than building and releasing a whole separate new game to coincide with a new story. They essentially said there will not be a Halo Infinite 2 or a Halo 7, but that they intend on implementing all future stories or narratives, or games, through Halo Infinite. I think this is an incredibly unique approach that will allow for infinite, no pun intended, opportunities to tell a variety of stories with a variety of characters, but probably mostly the Chief if we're being honest. I'm eager to get more information and, honestly, clarification on how this is going to work and what kind of content we can expect after the main story has concluded. Speaking of the main story, 343 Industries has also confirmed that Halo Infinite's main story is all-inclusive. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And all of these expansions or DLCs or games within a game, from what they're making it sound like, are going to be their own contained story in universe, and you'll play them all through Halo Infinite. So, really what I'm getting from that is that Halo Infinite is going to be like the MCC, but like they're building it as they go. The MCC is put together of games that have already been released in the past, but I think Halo Infinite is supposed to be like the next generation MCC, where they will add new campaigns or new stories or new games to Halo Infinite, making it a collection of what would be individually released titles. So again, like I said, I'm eager to see how they plan on doing this, how they plan on implementing it, and honestly a little bit of clarification, because even as I try to explain it, I'm like, does that really make sense? I mean, I don't know, I'm just going off what I think this is. So that's a big piece of new info that I wanted to touch on, because I thought that's crazy. Overall, in conclusion, I both really enjoyed the showcase, for the most part, when I first saw it, and all this new information has only reinforced my positive feelings about Infinite. I'm not only more excited for what's to come in terms of news within the next few months before launch, but also how the things 343 Industries have claimed will happen will play out. They stated that they still plan on having some sort of player hands-on testing for Infinite. I mean, if you don't know, their original flighting plan, their super ambitious flighting plan they announced at E3, I think it was like 2018 or 2019, something like that. Well, it got thrown out of the window because of COVID, everyone working from home, and it's just so much more difficult. Which is something I was particularly hoping the showcase would bring some news about. Which it kind of did. I mean, they said they're still going to do something, but the original plan is FUBAR. The hype train is just now starting to depart the station. And we are in the long run. We are in the final stretch. If all goes to plan, we will be playing Halo Infinite on our shiny new Xbox Series X's, or PCs if that's your thing, in just a few months. I do not plan on making a video about every piece of Infinite news that is released, just because I'm too busy for that, really. Because if news is going to start picking up, it's going to be coming at us quick, there's not a lot of time before launch, so. That being said, I will still talk about stuff that particularly stands out to me and stuff that I want to talk about. I find myself very opinionated on some things, for good or bad, and I tend to talk about those things. But only the things I want to talk about. Is essentially what I'm trying to say. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, do not forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, of course. I would also really appreciate it if you guys went ahead and followed me on social media, as since I do not have the luxury of doing content creation full time, I find myself interacting with the community the most on social media while I'm at work, between stops and all that good stuff. That being said, I will see you wonderful people in the next video. Peace.